This video is about common learning workflow issues that you'll come across. And some of these you've already come across them and there's problems to you. Other things they're going to come up over time. As you start improving other areas of your learning system, you're going to start noticing more high quality problems coming up because the problems that you had before are no longer an issue. So it's just a natural process. You don't a lot of people think, well, as your life improves, you're going to eliminate every single problem you have. It turns out there's other problems waiting for you. It's just they're higher quality problems. They're better problems to have. They're maybe not as significant, but they're still going to be there. And our brains are wired as problem solvers. That's kind of what humans are, or what their brains are, is problem solvers. So your brain is basically designed to look for problems and to solve problems. And as you go through life and as you solve certain levels of problems, other things are going to come up. You're going to want to take, as you're more and more self-sufficient and you're not taking up all your time focusing on yourself and how to solve your own personal problems, you start to expand to, well, how can I help other people? And that's a natural progression and evolution that all people go through. So certain people that seem very selfish or seem like they're only focusing on their self, or if you're in that situation also and you're mostly focused on the problems that you have in your own life right now, whether it's your business, your health, your relationships, whatever it is, eventually as you solve those problems, as you learn how to solve them, then you're going to start thinking about, well, how could I improve maybe my family or my close relationships? And then it's like, once you've figured that out, it's like, well, I want to expand that even more. So each area of your life, you're going to want to expand your responsibilities and what you take on to help other people as those circles expand. So that's something to keep in mind as you're creating these systems. Is part of the reason why it's so important to make them strong and to keep them simple enough so that you can memorize them and have them as a permanent framework, is that they need to be able to handle you taking on additional problems and expanding in complexity as you develop and as you evolve as a person. So with all that said, first thing is, how do you organize your external notes? So I've been talking about this and referring to it for a while. The basic system is you get some file cabinets. Maybe you only need one file cabinet right now. Maybe you need 5 or 10, but all your paper documents need to be going into file cabinets. And each learning project is going to start out as a single 3 or 5 tab manila folder. And what that means is, when you look from left to right, how many tabs can fit in 11 inches? Is it 3 tabs, so 3 wider tabs, or 5 tabs that aren't as wide, so maybe they're only 2 or 3 inches instead of 4 inches, something like that. So manila folders are what you're going to start out with. You're going to put the learning project number on that, and then you keep them in their numerical order. So everything that's ordered on your computer, it's ordered in the exact same way offline. Everything that's ordered in your meta level, that's ordered in your personal level, your career/business, your relationship, I put those out of order. So it's meta, then it's business/career, then it's personal, then it's relationships, then it's your health, and then it's anything else after that, or your learning projects could be a 5th one. So all those are in order. They're always in the same drawer, in the same file cabinet. You know where to put everything. Something that you print out, you know which folder to put it in, and you don't have a huge stack of stuff that you don't know what to do with. And because you're numbering stuff in all the different sections, you always know where to put it in a specific drawer. So when you're starting out, you could dedicate one drawer to all your personal stuff. And then because everything is numbered inside the personal folder, then whatever's 0, 1, or whatever is 1, and then whatever's 2. And you may be wondering, well, why would you use that 0 prefix? So instead, why wouldn't you just do 1, 2, 3 instead of 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3? The reason why is because in different systems, especially when you've got stuff in the cloud, like you've got a folder that's on your computer, but it's also synced with Dropbox in the cloud, Google Drive in the cloud, what happens is the ordering in some systems doesn't stay in place. So what happens is it'll go 1, then it'll go 11, then it'll go 12, then it'll go 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, then it'll go 2, then it'll go 20, 21, 22, 23. So it's just good practice to avoid those problems, because any new piece of technology that you want to integrate into this method of organization, you never know if how they set it up to organize stuff. So you just eliminate that problem by always adding the 0 when you're doing a prefix. And that's just called padding, number padding. So if you're wondering, and I talk about that battery namer tool, which is really useful for setting all this up. Just search battery name utility in Google and it'll come up, and it's a piece of freeware. It's really powerful and it's really good for setting up these systems. Every tab is labeled with a number. So it starts with a number, and then whatever text you can fit in, you fit that in, and then you always know where stuff is going to be. You can look at it on your computer and know exactly where that's going to show up in your filing cabinet. So it's really powerful to always know where your stuff is. So anything that's unorganized in random piles, in folders, binders, boxes in different places, over time I set each Friday to do organization, and over the months and years, you just tackle each little thing until all of it is eventually into your system, and then you never have to worry about it again. So if you have a lot of stuff, you just figure out, well, what's the most important stuff that I'm going to be wanting to retrieve most often? Start with that. So for some of you, that'll be your learning projects. So get those done first, and then kind of move on to these other areas in terms of what's most important in your life right now. Another thing that I should mention here that isn't on the slide is anytime I print stuff out, you just take a piece of regular Scotch tape and you put it at the right edge, the right side edge of that piece of paper. Put that tape so it hangs over the right side, and then fold it back under itself so that it creates this little tab made out of tape. And what that does is you've got a learning project folder that's got 20 different documents printed in it, and maybe a book or something printed in it, and you want to keep all those separate. It's really easy. Just add one of these tape tabs and they'll never go away. They'll never fall off like a sticky note might, and they'll always be there. So that's another really great way to just keep things separated but in the same learning project folder. And if stuff expands and you need multiple manila folders for a single project, then you just name let's say the number for the learning project is 043. So you would change the first folder to 043.01 and then the second to 02. So then it can expand. Even if you have 20 folders for a single learning project or a single role model who you're really learning a lot about, and there's a lot of books or whatever stuff that you printed out, then it can all go into that one project folder. And even if you've got multiple folders, they're all numbered. They always stay in the same sequence, same order. You always know where stuff is and where to put new stuff. Unorganized deeper notes. So when stuff is unorganized, it's better and it's just miscellaneous type stuff, it's better to have it as digital, because worst case scenario, you can just search it. If it's not in digital format, then you manually have to flip through every single piece of paper and read every line of text. So if it's unorganized, if it's miscellaneous, then try to keep it in as few places as possible and try to get it into a digital format, and ideally put it in and enter it originally in a digital format so you don't have to convert it. For stuff in your Moleskine, have one Moleskine for each month. I like to use a different folder for each month. Scan it in, whatever pages even if you didn't use all the pages, still switch to a new Moleskine and number each of those pages, and then scan them in, and then just save one copy of all of the scanned images together in one place, and then take a copy of that and then move them into whatever proper folder that they belong to. And if you've got a lot of stuff that, like your to-dos, your visions that you set out, or a journal, or mistakes that you made, then you should have folders within your personal, which is section 2, all your personal stuff. You should have a specific area that's called Moleskines or called notes or stuff like that. Have a folder for all that stuff. because that's going to comprise probably 50% or more of what's in your Moleskine. I mean, it is a pretty individual thing, but eventually what you're going to be able to do is when you're taking a new set of notes in your Moleskine, because you've memorized some of these basic this basic framework, when you're putting the title at the top of each page, you're going to already know which area of your framework or your system this note is going to go into. So you write that at the top of the piece of paper, and it makes it very easy later on to put things in their proper place. And even if you have an assistant, then they could do that for you, and you could automate it even more. So it's really powerful to be able to do that. And also ADF scanner, that just means auto document feed, and it's really great because then you can feed in a stack of 50, 60 pages, and the computer and the scanner will just do them all batched at once. You don't want to have to do this with a flatbed scanner. It takes way too much time. Another thing is losing books and not keeping books together with the rest of your learning materials. So I use $1 scan. It's a really cheap way to get all of your books into a PDF that you can keep in your digital learning project folder and then print that out. I usually do 2 pages per page, and print that out and keep that printed version of the book with all the rest of your learning documents also. So that's a really powerful way to do it. I'll also give you some settings for when you're taking a digital book that's just unformatted so that it can fit on different e-readers, and how to format it so it looks really good and doesn't waste a bunch of paper. So that's a big issue, is getting them to print out so they look close as possible to a real book. And then you're keeping all these books in your file cabinet. So that was the major issue, is I was trying to figure out, well, I want to have these books with all my other materials. I want to have them so when I'm doing my reviews, when I'm trying to synthesize stuff, it's all in one place. Same thing with on my computer. I want it all in one place. So anyways, Calibre settings, this is the best program out there for handling ebooks, is export to PDF, set it to there's a separate area, like the last output settings or like miscellaneous settings, is you tell it to override the formatting settings so that you can enter your own. And you put in 4 by 7 inch, which is about the size of like what you want the block of text to look like. So just put in 4 by 7, and then set it to inches. That'll be a drop down menu. Then go to there'll be some check boxes that you can just check off. So check off add table of contents at the end, add page numbers. Page numbers is huge so that you can reference stuff. So that all goes back to what I was saying before. Make sure everything is numbered, because then you have a way to refer to things exactly. If you look at some a lot of legal stuff nowadays, they number every single line of every single page so that they can refer to the exact line that they want to get to. So everything is within that format. And it may seem overwhelming at first, like, do I really need to do that? Is that really necessary? Trust me, it is. And as your things get more complicated, and as you memorize this stuff and you build that framework, it just gives you so much more speed. And it's not all about learning and about memorization. It's also about clarity of thinking, having frameworks, and being able to think quickly and move from idea to idea quickly and not get overwhelmed, because our brains are hard set with a very low amount of RAM. And so the only way to handle a situation, a brain where you have a very low amount of RAM and you can't change that, is you need to have a very efficient system. So that's the only way to do it, and you need to use numbers to do that effectively. And then finally, font size. Set the font size to 12. They usually use a font size that's way too large, but this will basically come out looking like a regular book. So I played around with that a lot, and those are the best settings. Another thing is quick notes during the day. So when you're just getting random ideas, or whenever I'm watching a TV show, I'm usually making little notes to myself about different things that I like, or something a character said, or thinking about storytelling and structures of stories and narratives and different things like that. That's all, like, that'll just be a little note in my phone. And so the best way to deal with this stuff, and if you're on your computer, you can use a sticky note function. That's usually the best, or you have like Notepad++ is a really great application, and it can save an entire set of text files as a workspace. So you don't have to manually save each one individually, then it'll just pop back up later. So that's powerful also. But basically all of this stuff, eventually you just copy and paste it. Either if it's a long form thing and it can go into one category, you can just copy and paste it into OneNote or Evernote or a separate Word document or Google Drive document and put it in the proper section. And one thing I should mention that I didn't mention already is that this same system, you build it into your Evernote, you build it into your OneNote, so all your OneNote stuff is organized. So it's really powerful because it can work in, same thing with your Google Drive or your Dropbox. No matter what situation it's in, same thing with your Gmail. So it really works with every possible system because it's so simple. And that's one of the downfalls of a lot of these more complicated ways of organizing stuff, is that they just don't work with certain software, with certain with certain other systems, and so you can't use them, or you can't use them in every area. And that's what this is designed for. Use it in every area so you can think in this one kind of framework system, one language, and use it all the time. Eventually it becomes second nature, and just the clarity of thought, the ability to think quickly, is massively improved. And it's really the only way to do it. So once you've transferred all this stuff into a spreadsheet, you just go through the spreadsheet, you tag or label each thing. You've got to have a controlled vocabulary. So this is a pretty complex thing in and of itself. So when you're taking like random ideas and you're just putting them into your phone, you will have to spend time later on categorizing each one of those ideas if you want to be able to retrieve them. And I know it sounds really boring having to go through a spreadsheet and organize hundreds or thousands of random ideas, but I've done it. It's not the worst thing in the world. You get kind of into a flow. Get yourself some drink that you like, or put some music on, or put a movie on as you do it. The whole idea of a controlled vocabulary is you've got to have a limited set of descriptors you use. So once you label each thing in a separate, in the next door cell to whatever the idea is, then you just sort alphabetically, and then each thing is magically, they're all organized. Each idea is organized with all of the other ideas in that category. There's other things that you can do within spreadsheets, like set a limited number of categories. So it's like you can create a drop down menu, and it's called data validation. So you're only allowed to enter data into that cell, or text into that cell, that matches a certain word or basically string. So like if you really like to cook, you might have a separate section for cooking. So if you tried to put in, if you forgot what your categories were and you try to put in chef instead of cooking, it wouldn't let you put that in. So you'd have to use cooking, and you could even have a drop down menu. But basically you have to create a controlled vocabulary, little keywords or ways of labeling each thing. Then you have to manually do that. So that's really the only way to handle when you've got a ton of really, like if you're always coming up with ideas all the time and you have to store them in some place, either they're just completely random, or you have to label them this way and then hope that you can search them, or actually label them and sort them. And what I do is I just keep them sorted. I don't usually transfer them out of the spreadsheet into some other place unless it's like, okay, now I'm going to work on synthesizing all of this, and then do it at once, print it out, cut and paste it into like a OneNote document, print that out, and then I can work on that as if it's just another set of notes. And then you can add extra columns like what date was this created on, what's the source of this information. It can become more complex over time. But just to start out, just have a spreadsheet, have the first column be the note, second column be what's the label for it. And then at the end, when you're done labeling everything, you sort it by the second column and you're good to go.